Hey guys, welcome to a new session of Critique the Community. This is a little portfolio review that we do where we look at actual images from people in the Fstoppers community and we give them a rating. So today we are actually here in the mountains on a ski trip. Mike Kelley came along with us, so we figured we would do a Critique the Community with architectural photography. And most of you guys might know Mike. We did a tutorial with him called Art and Architecture.
Where art meets architecture.
Where art meets architecture. And you can find this in the Fstoppers store. Basically, he goes through and shows you how to do architecture.
All kinds of architectural, real estate, interior design, specific photographs. So
everything from getting it perfect in camera for real estate photography all the way to
location work, Photoshop, compositing.
Hundreds of images to make.
All the different styles inherent.
So it'll be really fun to go through these pictures from our community and kind of pick Mike's brain on what he thinks makes a great image. We're also really excited to have Mike back at this year's 2015 workshop in Atlantis, down in the Bahamas. So if you want more information on the classes, what class are you teaching down there?
2-day complete guide to architectural and interiors photography. So I'll be lots of location work, Photoshop work. I'll pretty much spill everything that I know to you down here in the Bahamas, and it's two-day courses. So
great. So if you want to attend and actually work side by side with Mike and learn all of his techniques and get a little more hands-on instruction,
cool.
Definitely check out fstoppersworkshops.com. So let's go ahead and start with our first image, and we're just going to go 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to throw down a number.
Perfect.
And let's start.
All right.
Do you know what you're going to pick?
I know what I'm going to pick. Do you know what you're going to pick?
I believe I know what I'm going to pick.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
1, 2, 3, 2.
All right. 2-star image. So
we agree on this. You want to go first on why you think this is a 2-star image?
Sure. I mean, I think that the photographer has a somewhat decent handle on a light painting sort of technique, but I think there are a lot of issues with the image, and we could definitely iron some of them out to make it a lot better with some simple tweaks. Like up in the top right here, we could easily crop that out or zoom in. I think we're a little bit too wide. We're getting some distortion in the chair in the left foreground here. Something's poking into the frame in the bottom left. I don't really know what that is. The couch, the right-hand side looks gigantic, and the light over here is very distorted as well. And I think they have a good handle on lighting techniques, but again, it could be cleaned up and refined a little bit. I think the kitchen is a bit too bright compared to what it would be in real life. But I mean, on the other hand, there are some good things, like they've shown the space pretty well. I just think it could be cleaned up here and there. So I would say that it needs work, but it's almost more like a 2.5. It has potential, but needs work.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of those points you said is exactly what I was thinking. It just seems like the kitchen's too bright. Everything looks a little wonky. It's like all these lines are coming in from different directions, and when I look at this, it almost seems like the whole kitchen's slanted to the left. It's almost like the camera wasn't quite straightened up. Maybe this is something that was done in post, or trying to create the verticals in the bathroom.
It could be wide-angle lens distortion as well, kind of messing with us, but I agree, there's definitely some distortion that has to be dealt with.
I will say, though, like after having just bought a home recently, 2 years ago, that if I saw this image of the living space in the kitchen, it would definitely pique my interest in seeing the house, if that's the purpose of this photo. But I think for this purpose, the purposes of this critique, these aren't images just to get you in a house to consider buying it. This needs to be something that you want on your website.
Right.
And something you're proud of. So I think it's definitely not a snapshot, but a little more work could go into this before you
just
put it
a little
on your
refinement,
website.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I said, obviously the beginnings of something good are there. So
great. So let's go to the next image. So we've clearly left the real estate genre.
Real
at this
estate,
point. What would you call this?
I would call this somewhat an attempt at fine art, and I'm going to rate it a little bit differently because of that.
All right. I think I know what I'm going to give it.
I know as well.
Okay. So
all right, ready?
1, 2, 3. All right, 2 again. I'll go first on this one. I just feel like the composition on this, I can see what they're trying to do. They have these leading lines from the left coming in, but I don't know, the black and white conversion actually looks really nice. I feel like the blacks are really black, and then there's tons of tonality in the grays and the whites. I like the high key look of it. But I guess this pole in the middle just kind of, I almost would clone that out. It would be so easy to get rid of that with the white. It just almost seems like it's just taken in the wrong place. I don't know that I would ever buy this and put it in my house as an architectural,
type of image,
fine art sort of image. And I know now you're getting into a lot of the fine art black and white stuff.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of your points. Like I like the black and white conversion and the tonality of the whole image, but to me, I don't think that the photographer intended this to be a commercial image. It was more of a fine art piece, and for that reason, I'm not too thrilled with it because it's nothing that I haven't seen before, or it's nothing that is very compelling to me. Like if I were to see this in a gallery, I wouldn't really think twice about it. Like what about this image makes me stop and stare at it and appreciate it? And what is so unique about this, whether architecturally or artistically speaking, that would make me really want to fall in love with this image, and what would make it endure on a living room wall or something, you know?
Yeah, I'm really trying hard to think like what to do to improve this. And to me, I go back and think the composition just looks a little weird.
And there's no scale, there's no human element to it, and the vertical lines are kind of off. But again, if we can get away with it if it's an artistic approach to it. But I mean, I like again, like the previous image, the beginnings of something are there. Like obviously they have a handle on leading lines and geometric shapes and that kind of thing. But I think to be like a successful fine art image, there needs to be a lot more going on here.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's go to the next one.
All right.
I'm trying to figure out what I'm even looking at.
It looks like it's from the ground level looking up towards clouds with a neutral density filter on there.
This reminds me of like Gaudi in Barcelona or something.
Yeah.
All these interesting. It almost looked like solar panels, but maybe those are windows.
It's
LCD
like the Walt
TVs.
Disney Concert Hall kind of thing with windows in there.
Yeah. I have a scale for this. I have a rating.
Okay, I'm ready. You ready?
Sure.
All right.
1, 2, 3. You gave it a 3.
I gave it a
I went a
3.
4.
Okay. Why do you think it's
I'll
4?
justify my 4 first. I just think the mood in this is so awesome. I think it's very easy for photographers to get into this mindset that everything needs to be lit and bright and perfect and balanced. This has so much shadow and darkness in it that it instantly gives you a mood. You don't know what you're looking at, but you feel like this is a cool, eerie, modern place. It's almost postmodern, It's just got all these crazy designs in it. I think the composition's great. I love the background. I don't know if that was done in post or if that's some kind of long exposure with clouds. I'm actually very disoriented looking at this. I don't know, like you said, if we're on the ground looking up or if this is from another roof looking across and these are like skylights.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what I'm looking at, but it definitely would make me stop and look at this image longer than 20 seconds.
I think it's a solid image. I like where they're going with it. I like the line. I love the processing. I like that it's a little bit darker. They didn't feel the need to completely properly expose it. But to me, I've seen this a lot before. I don't know if you have. I see it all the time in landscape photography. And I mean, it's a cool picture, but I just don't feel like, maybe you haven't seen it before, but I just don't feel compelled. Like what is drawing me into this picture, and what would make me keep looking at it, and what would make it endure and make me come back to it day after day after day saying, I love that picture. And I just think the subject matter is a little bit shallow as a result. I think the building is great, but I think the building is doing most of the work rather than the photographer.
Yeah, I have a hard time placing this in a genre. Like
Yep.
this is clearly more towards the fine art
Yep.
element.
With architecture as a subject.
Yeah, like you would never want to sell an architect's work with this mood, I don't think, and you would never want to
if they
sell.
were, like a kind of out there kind of
Perhaps
artsy person, but
I
I do love the processing, and I do love the white and the black and the lines and the movement inherent in it. But to me, it just doesn't suck me in and get me like obsessed with that picture. Like I see it and I'm like, it's cool, but what's going on here?
And I think that's why I gave it a 4. I think this is a killer shot that I would keep in my portfolio if the portfolio had this genre throughout. If you just throw this in with bright, airy portfolio,
and I'm going to interrupt you.
Weird.
I would think this would be stronger if it was in a body of work and we saw 10 of these pictures shot in a similar manner. But right now it's just a one-off. But if I saw 10 of these, it could be seriously impressive.
I mean, knowing our community and other websites
Yeah.
and seeing this sort of work online, I have to believe this photographer does a genre like this throughout
Yeah.
his body of work. But very cool. So you say 3, I say 4.
Yeah, I'm
3.5
happy with
is
that,
probably
yeah.
a pretty good rating on this one.
Cool.
Anything else?
All right. Ooh.
Now, I'm going to say this image looks like it's straight up your alley. Like this looks like the sort of
Yeah.
work that you would be hired to do and you would love to take on these sort of jobs.
Yeah.
And the styling looks, very similar. This could actually be somebody who's watched your tutorial and has applied some of your techniques.
Okay,
All right.
I'm ready. Ready?
Sure.
All right.
1, 2, 3. You went 4.
I went 4.
I went 3. Okay. You want to talk about what you
Okay,
like in this one?
So, I mean, I think this is a pretty good image. I'm assuming that you were hired by the theater or did it on spec with the intention of putting it in your portfolio. And I think in that situation, job well done. I would say if this is a piece of work that you did to go in a portfolio, I would hope it would be. And I would say you knocked it out of the park. But I mean, the architecture isn't that enticing or sexy, but for what it is, I mean, it's going to go on a Yelp page or a Google reviews kind of thing, and people are going to say, that's a very nice movie theater. I'd like to go there. It's obviously not in a shady part of town. It's well manicured. It's clean. I say to that, job well done.
Yeah, and I can agree with everything that you said. I don't know that I could push this into that 4-level category. I think the sky is a little boring.
I definitely think it could use work just to kick it up a notch. So it's not, to me, a solid 4, but I don't think it's quite 3 yet. I say 4 because it looks like it was intended to go in someone's portfolio.
What do you feel about on this right-hand side above this movie poster? There's a very bright highlight that doesn't extend any further. My eye, as the photographer, goes to it. Maybe the general public would never even notice that.
Yep.
It does fall in line with the street lamp, so
Yep.
maybe you could kind of pass that off. Does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me. I'd be okay with toning it down. What I would like to see is more brightness in the interior. I would love to see, people coming in and out. The more I talk about this, the more I want to revise it down to a 3. I think you could take this a bit further, but I think it's also a solid image. But I'd love to see people coming in and out. I'd love to see lights on inside. I'd love to see a little more drama in the sky now that we discussed it a bit more.
I was thinking people too. I mean, the movie theater is the most busy place you go
Yep.
on the weekend, and to see this vacant and perfectly manicured, and it's cool. It documents the building really well. But I think if you're trying to sell this as a commercial image,
Yep.
you also want the vibe and mood of like, I need to go there, and this kind of lacks that a little bit.
I can agree with that. All right, so I'm going to say 3.
I'm gonna go 3 as well.
All right, ready? Ooh,
This one's kind of tough, I feel like.
it is. Again, I'm kind of torn. There's some gray area between some of the numbers,
I think if you just stick to, is this respectable in your portfolio?
Yep.
Is this doesn't even belong in your portfolio? Or is this a spectacular image? If you kind of keep the 2, 3, and 4 down to that criteria, I think it makes it a little easier.
I'm good. You ready?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go a little harsh here.
Okay.
You ready? You're second guessing yourself.
Ready? No,
All right.
I'm good. Ready?
3, 2, 1. We both gave it a
All
2.
right, 2.
I mean, I look at this image and I think it has a lot of potential.
I
The
agree.
scene itself is super moody. Like, I would love to be in that tub
Yep.
and doing absolutely nothing with candlelight all around me. I feel like the composition's a little weird. It's, the candle on the left is so big, and again, the lines kind of have. It looks like it needs to be tweaked in post. Or
It's
maybe,
not shot from an angle enough to look like it's shot from an angle intentionally, and it's not shot as a 1-point perspective enough to make a solid 1-point composition. So yeah, it's kind of stuck between two places here, composition-wise, I think.
Yeah, that's. I wouldn't have known to explain it that way, but I think you're right. I don't know if this is a problem or if it could just be manipulated a little bit better, but the difference in color tones here, I'm really thrown off that this is very moody. It feels like a romantic bathroom that's at night.
Mm-hmm.
And then there seems to be this daylight coming in from the top, which kind of gives me the vibe that like you're in this moody room, but it's really bright outside.
And you're not really controlling the light as well as you should have, or it should be shot at a different time of day.
Yeah, or it to me, just as a viewer, not even as a photographer, it just pulls me out of this romantic bathroom in a very dimly lit room with just candlelight, because now there's the skylight or something above. I think you could fix that in post. It also looks like a lot of this image is just lit with natural light, which isn't a problem. I know a lot of natural light photographers can do wonders with this stuff, but it just seems like knowing what you do and introducing some other strobes to really bring out the texture and in the wall and maybe a little more texture in the floor, at least the little plants on the right. I think you could make this image sing somehow. I don't feel like it's quite there yet. I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable putting this in my portfolio online.
I agree with most of what you said. I think the composition could use a bit of work. Right now, I'm just looking at the side of a tub. I'd rather see the water swirling around, you know, some petals in there. Even a person in the tub would be great, you know, like a great looking model. And I just think it's again on the right track, and I think the lighting, I can see what you attempted to do, but I don't think the execution was as flawless as it could have been. And I think definitely the light could have been controlled a lot better. And let's see. And it just feels like it's, you know, it's just a tub. There's the sense of a mood almost being created, but it needs more, whether it's a higher composition so that we see into the tub and see kind of like the cool swirling water effect type of thing, or there's a model in there, you know, modeling like she's relaxing, or it's a guy and a girl, something romantic. I just think it needs a bit of a nudge to get into the next 3 and 4.
Well, it brings up an interesting point. This obviously is a very narrow room. It's
Yeah.
very hard to work in these narrow
Yeah.
spaces. And so what do you do? Do you introduce the human element? Do you make this more of a commercial style image?
Yeah,
or
I'd
an
go
advertising
even
image?
tighter. I'd show someone in this space, like having the time of their lives, whatever they're doing, if it's relaxing or something else, and they are just, you know, they're loving it. I mean, I don't need to see the walls really. I don't need to see this. The floor is nothing sexy. To me, it looks like a high school bathroom floor. I just think, you know, you need to have someone in there to give this the mood that it really needs, so that someone looking at this on a hotel or spa website thinks, I need to be there right now, enjoying that like that.
So I know a
person
big tendency is to get in a narrow space to shoot as wide as possible. It's almost like, what do I do? It's so hard to shoot in here. Shoot wide.
Shoot wide, yeah.
But this actually may be a situation where even cropping half the tub off and really focusing
Yeah.
on something with a 50 millimeter
And just
might.
focusing on a couple candles and some flowers and like the bath salts or whatever, and get some mood going rather
Well,
than trying
because
to
this,
show the whole
I mean,
room.
what I like about what this photographer did was he picked an interesting location.
Yeah.
That tub, I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
I mean, it's kind of cool.
It looks kind of crazy. It's got a lot of texture on the outside of it. It doesn't look like
Yeah.
a tub you would find in anyone's home or in any hotel. This is custom made for this application. And so
Yeah.
I think if you really exploit that, you can really make it more about the details than trying to show a narrow.
I just think the biggest thing is to show what's going on in the tub. You know, whether it's tighter, higher, changing the composition. But I think we need to focus more on the tub itself rather than the floor and the walls, which aren't adding any. Like, to me, I see a whole 2/3 of the image adds nothing to it.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
Great. Let's.
all right, on to the next one. Ready when you are.
I know what I'm going to rate this. I'm just trying to think of what I'm going to talk about. It's a very wide shot with a lot going on, but I think I'm ready.
Okay, ready?
1, 2, 3. You gave it a 2.
I
I gave it a 3.
Okay. What do you think? What do you like about it?
I think it's very clean. It's not very flashy. This is kind of, I don't want to say a different approach of what you do, but this isn't everything's lit and perfectly strobed and balanced and it's, 30 images composited in. This looks more, my sister is an interior designer and I've seen the magazines. It's kind of muted colors and very earthy and very open with the lighting. I like that look. I think that's very popular. I think that's very in vogue right now. There are some things I can see with the distortion of shooting so wide, but I can see you're trying to show this is obviously a very large, great room, and then it has a killer view in the background. You're trying to show all of that. I think it's safe to say, going back to with what you did in the tutorial, was what is the purpose of this image? Is this for an architect and you're trying to show the woodwork? Is this for an interior designer who you're trying to show how they laid out the room? Or is this maybe real estate and you just want to get people in the house by saying we have this killer large room? And I think the way you judge this image really depends on the use of that image.
Exactly. I just feel like going literally by the ratings that it just, again, the makings of something good are there. It just needs some tweaking. It needs work.
What bothers you?
I think like there's a burned out area on the day beds over here on the left. I don't know what's going on here. It's like a weird color lighting thing is an issue. And I think it's really too wide. Even though people say, I want to see the whole room, I want to understand the size of the room, we could still cut off a quarter of the frame on each side and we'd still get half a fireplace and half of the cabinet and the space. Architectural and interiors photography is really all about implying. You don't need to show the entire room to let people know that something's there. Like if we were to zoom in, we'd have a lot more of an idea of what's going on behind that for this couch. This couch is kind of blocking everything. And I like the composition. I kind of like the rushing feel that it has. But I just think it needs to be tightened up a little bit so that we're not coming from out here and it's just kind of more focused.
You can definitely feel that on the edges of the carpet, you know, and especially these little decorations by the fireplace. It's got this pulled effect that no matter how straight you try to get it in Photoshop.
It's just a little too much. And maybe it looks like it was shot at like 24 to 22 millimeters. And I think if we went to 28 to 30, it would fix a lot of problems. It'd also make it a lot easier to light. So.
But you gave this a 2. You would say this doesn't belong in your portfolio.
Well, it depends on your portfolio. I don't think again, it just depends on your portfolio. If this is an image that you're really proud of and you're just getting started, then I would by all means put it in there. But for me, it would not belong in my portfolio. There's no real mood going on. There's a bunch of lighting issues. It's just too wide. It doesn't really represent my style, if that makes sense to you. And I think we've got a lot, I'm just looking at this, the upper quarter and the lower quarter, there's no real important information there for me.
Yeah, now that I look at it, I still stand by my 3. I think this is a solid image if you're building this portfolio. I think this could be an image you would replace, a year down the road or so.
But I want to clarify, I don't think it's a bad image. I just think it needs some attention paid. And you could easily fix it by cropping and kind of messing with the light, assuming you bracketed and used some different lit exposures. You could fix a lot of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I can definitely see it up on the mantle. And if you look at the top 10% of the frame, it's dark, and then right below it is the brightest part of the image.
And I think the window replacement, I get what you were trying to do, but I don't think that the view is important enough here. I think the important part of this picture is the room itself, not what's out there. There's no real spectacular view. I would just let the windows go white and just try to retain a bright, lively feel rather than try to pull in what looks to me like a cold kind of late autumn scene with nothing. If there are mountains or an ocean out there, by all means, but at this point, I would just say let the windows go
And I do
white.
notice you've seen more of this style of imagery than I have, but in these very natural lit rooms, they do let the windows blow out more often than not.
And so it looks kind of unnatural when you have that. It looks like outside is like f8 1/200th and inside is like f8 1/6 or something. And there's just kind of, it would never, and I can see the blown out, around the window frames, it looks a bit blown out. There's just too much of an exposure difference to make it realistic for me.
Great, so you'd say 2.5?
Yeah, like I said, I can see the basis of a solid image, it just needs some cleaning up. And I judge that harshly because I can honestly tell this person kind of knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So.
My initial reaction is I'm more excited the second I see it, and then the more that I examine it, I become a little less excited.
Yeah.
But I don't want to give away my rating on this, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Okay, I'm ready. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Another 2, another 3. I'm glad you're being more critical than me because you see this way more than I
started off very gentle, but now that we're getting through it.
I'll start on what I like about this and why I think this is a great shot to have in your portfolios. I imagine if this is small and it's just being used to get you to click on a website or to view this property, it would do a great job. This is going to be better than 95% of the images used for that purpose. They definitely used a light painting technique, so everything from the landscaping and the trees to the driveway and all the details there are definitely being accented, which is really nice. The more I look at it, and what makes this not a 4 in my opinion, is the lights inside just have kind of a weird color. When I first looked at it, I kind of liked that, but now that I look at it again, it makes the interior just
kind
look
of like
really,
a sickly greenish
yellow.
Yeah,
it's got that hotel, cheap hotel color in there. I don't like how much of the trees are accented. I think you could probably just pull that down like 50%, and it would really not pull your eye away from the building and into the landscaping. I don't know about the driveway. I kind of like that the driveway is lit unevenly because it makes me feel like it's a natural light causing that.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it when photographers use strobe, not to light everything, but to make it feel like it's natural light. So I do kind of like that. I could be persuaded either way. This highlight here on the exterior concrete wall with the mailbox kind of pulls me away. I almost feel like the building should be a little brighter. To make me really go into the building as opposed to viewing.
Yeah,
all
like almost
over
like more of a vignette would help just to kind of get your attention.
Yeah, but I think if you had this in your portfolio, I think this is a pretty solid image. That if you had 20 images like this, you may be the top guy in your local area.
True, and my first reaction was I kind of liked it at first, and then the more I looked at it, I kind of saw one problem, then another problem, then another problem. But I think the main issue here, and I want to preempt this and say that to judge composition just on the internet like this is so hard to do, so take what I say with a grain of salt. but I think the composition is the biggest problem here. I think you showed the entire thing, but it doesn't really compel me in any way that this is some cool piece of modern architecture. It's very flat looking to me. It's not, the 1 point perspective isn't strong enough to shoot that because you've got the hedges blocking it and you've got this, it's almost like a jail cell poured concrete thing. If you move to the right and up the driveway a bit, I think you could show some depth to the house. You could show the modern, this really cool cantilevered upstairs. You could show this cool porch. If you could elevate a bit, I just don't think the composition is very compelling. And then as I looked at the composition and nitpicked it, I just thought, like, I don't know what's going on with this here, this front center piece of concrete. It looks like it's been stretched and warped and kind of fit in there awkwardly. And then I look at the lighting, and the lighting is kind of, it's very flat and not directional. I always try to make the lighting, even when I'm light painting, make it look realistic. So the house would be the brightest thing. And then I light paint from, where the house is back at the trees to kind of give it some, to kind of chisel out some texture in there. It just looks like the photographer shot the light straight into the trees and flattened everything out. But I think, again, the biggest problem for me, and again, it's so hard to criticize this without being there, is that the composition is pretty weak. And the client could have requested this, that's all fine and well, but I just think if you were up the driveway to the right shooting, you'd get the entryway, you'd get this awesome porch, you'd get the 3 levels, you'd get all the great features of the house, you'd lose the whole jail cell poured concrete feeling of the front, and it'd be easier to light.
Yeah, I definitely see that now that you mention it. I can see where if you move to the right, though, you may have the neighbor's house coming into your frame.
And I would definitely tighten up. I would probably cut half the garage off, and I don't even think I'd show the whole house. I think the most interesting thing is that front center bit from, the entryway to halfway through the garage, up over the porch, patio area, and that. So, but again, that's just, that's my opinion, and I would say if the composition was dictated by the client, there's not much you can do about it, but I think there are much more interesting ways to shoot this.
I agree, to a degree.
All right.
I still gave it a 3. I still believe that this can sit in your portfolio.
My reaction was great at first. Like, as a thumbnail image, I think it's super strong.
Yeah.
But if we're going to criticize and, if this is going to go in a magazine or something, I think we've got to step it up a little bit. But I think it's great. It stemmed in, it resulted in a great conversation here, so. But I remember my first reaction was, whoa, like, that's great. And then I started to dig into it, and I was like, okay, we could definitely improve this. And then.
But this isn't just, it's a 2 is still a guy who just shows up with a camera, who puts a little bit of thought
But again,
into
like, I know that this guy, definitely is trying to improve. Like, I can see the markings of a need to improve there, a want to improve. So
this is a killer, too, if this is an attempt that you try, and you wind up with that. Like, it's still it's really a 3.
Again, it's good. We could debate, though. Okay. Ready?
We'll let the community debate it.
Ooh, I like this one.
This looks very familiar.
Yes, it does.
I was just there with my moon boots. We were filming another tutorial with a guy named Elia Lacardi, and he took us to Iceland, and this is in Reykjavik.
Yes.
What is this actual building?
The Harper Concert Hall. So this is a concert hall that was just finished in Reykjavik a couple years ago, and inside there are 3 or 4 different venues for concerts and written word, spoken word, all kind of different performances. So right on the water, very cool, very modern, brand new building.
And this image is, this location is shot a lot. This is a very iconic image. Mm-hmm. This may be the most iconic image of Reykjavik.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Am I saying that right?
Reykjavik, close.
Reykjavik.
It's okay.
Right. I'm not very good with my Icelandic. All right, I know what I'm going to give this.
Me too.
All
Ready?
Right. Yep. 2 and 3. Okay.
All right. I love the lighting in this picture. I think the best part, and the reason I give it a 3 is because the lighting is such an important thing. And I think a lot of times photographers try to make up for bad lighting with great composition and so on. But I love the lighting. I love the sun flare. I think it shows off the front facade of the building wonderfully. We've got some great leading lines going on. Again, I think it's solid, but to make it a portfolio piece, it could do some tweaking. I've been here myself, and I know that there are better angles to shoot this from. And I know that there are, some just better compositional calls that could have been made, but I do love the lighting, and I love what's going on. And I'm in love with the building, so it probably helps
I
as well.
think that skewed your voting a little bit. I give it a 2 because I just feel like the composition, man, it's not good at all, really. It's got straight through the middle is where they place the horizon.
Yep.
And then there's so much dead blue sky on the very top. I personally am not a huge fan of this flare.
I like it. I like the sun flare.
I could live with the flare if they added that in and then also brushed in an exposure maybe later on in the day when the windows came on. I just feel like the whole lower part of the building.
I love that sun on the. I think it shows so much texture and depth, and
It does. I do agree with that. It's just I don't like the foreground element. I feel like it's like the whole bottom right of the frame is
It
just
could be
this-
shot. It could be cropped a little better and shot maybe at like a slightly better time of day. But I think this is very Iceland. Like it looks cold. It looks blue. It's got the golden late sun that is just perpetual up there at that time of day. I mean,
Having
it's
just
a
been
very,
there a few weeks ago, I just know if you walked forward and maybe really used the water pond there as
Yep.
more of a
Compositional
framing,
element.
exactly, you could have more reflection in the water. I almost think this might be even shot a little too straight on. I mean, this is a very angular building as
Yep.
well. The neat thing with a location like this is it's so modern that you can almost shoot this from any direction and
Yeah.
come up with something cool because it's so exotic to us. You see this image or this building and you're like, I don't know where that is, but it looks really cool. And then you have the mountains in the background. But I just feel like the whole bottom half is a little too dark. I feel like my eye goes to the flare, and instead of the flare being this cool little thing that they allowed to happen,
Yep.
to me it becomes the center of this image.
And the verticals are off. Got to fix the verticals.
Fix the verticals.
All right, I'm ready. You ready?
That's the fastest rating we've ever done. The community may hate me for this, but I'm ready.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right. 1?
I gave this a
A
1.
1?
A 1.
It can't be a 1. Like there was thought put into the composition.
Was there?
Whether or
Explain to me. Explain to
whether or
me.
not it was misguided, there was thought put into it. So by that definition, it cannot be a snapshot.
My mom puts a little thought into her compositions as well. Go ahead and
You're so
explain to me
mean.
why you like this.
I think there's some element of a graphic composition here. I don't think it was well executed, but I think it's not a total and utter failure. And to me, a 1 is a total and utter failure.
I can't see this being put in a portfolio.
I can't either.
can't tell you how to improve this image. Like I really don't. The line is going straight down the middle of the frame.
And I think it's kind of cool.
I know leading lines are important to you guys.
I
and
mean,
all
I
that,
like
but
the idea. It just doesn't work in this room. You know, like if you had like a gorgeous oceanfront property with windows that opened all the way and you sat right in the middle and had living room on one side, ocean on the other, and just replaced it with, like, that would be cool.
Sure, if this was a totally
But,
different
so, like I
room,
said,
that would work
yeah,
well.
it's just
I feel like you're looking down the sink in a way that you would never look down the sink.
Of course.
Like you're just putting the viewer in a very strange position that I don't think is very natural. I mean, I can see, okay, they framed it so that the one window is
So there's
reflected.
some thought involved.
Yeah, there's some thought involved, but I don't have to say some thought involved equates it jumping up a star rating.
Okay.
I still feel like this feels very grungy. There's like no lighting. This looks like just a
Yep.
snapshot with natural light. Again,
The lighting
perspective-
definitely needs help.
The perspective of where the viewer is standing.
Like, this could be very cool. There's no HDR needed. There's no exposure blending needed. Like, umbrella on a light stand with the light out the window, drag your shutter, blast it in, you get great light immediately, move the composition to the left, zoom in a little bit, done.
Yeah, I feel like the whole right side of the frame is pointless. We
Yep.
don't need to know there's a mirror there. I feel like even the sink isn't that important. I think this tub is really interesting.
Yep.
You could crop a horizontal and crop half the tub and half the window even, and just have this really like, it almost looks like a Greece sort of,
Yep.
Greek architecture. It looks
Yep.
really cool, but they're trying to show too much off. They say, oh, there's a mirror. I got to show the mirror off. And there's
But
a
you could
sink
show
in-
all that in a different area just as easily
Perhaps.
and get a lot better lighting going on.
But for me, I
Okay, I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I see that there was some thought, so it's not literally a snapshot, but obviously there's a lot to improve.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say.
He hates it. All right, ready? Next one. Ooh. I'm between two things here.
I think I'm pretty solid on the vote that I'll give it.
Okay. Ready?
Yep. 3, 2, 1. 2.
3?
Give it a 3.
Explain your reasoning.
I love just the mood of it. I love all of the backlight. I think it gives you a vibe. This doesn't look like a very beautiful place, and they did something that made it look really unique and cool. The things that do bother me, the view kind of sucks, but what can you do about that? I mean, unless this is some kind of like advertising image where you can just cop in a completely fake background, you kind of have to use what you're, work with what you have there. I don't like. I would have just cloned the little daylight stripes
Yeah.
that are coming through.
Yeah.
I think those are really annoying, distracting. And I don't think by doing that you would lose the integrity of the location and say, oh my gosh, he removed some little slit that's there. That does kind of bother me. I just think it's cool. I think it's a solid image. Again, if I saw this small or cropped in on a website, I would look at it and be like, oh, this photographer knows what he's doing. Really clever use of light, and it gives everything in the frame a texture.
I just don't. I mean, I get that there was an attempt made at mood, so I said I think it needs work. I don't think it's quite solid. Obviously, the overexposed strips on the window. I don't know what's going on there, but I think the entire view is very underexposed. Like, you could easily drop in like a 2 stops brighter view and still get a great sunset out there. And you could,
If that view's worth the 2 stops, though, I mean, what if that's like a bakery, a
well,
donut
it
shop, or
definitely-
something?
It looks like a cool old historic building. It looks like it's in Istanbul or something. Like, I mean, I could be completely wrong by a margin of thousands of miles, but it looks like it's a pretty cool
and
scene.
I'm giving the photographer the benefit of the doubt that he didn't want that to show up. If it was cool, yes, you bring that up a
Well,
little
in that
bit.
using that logic, it looks like he didn't want anything to show up because the whole thing looks like it's 2 stops under. I mean, I get there's a point and a time and a place for dark things, but it's too shapely for me, and not like you can still be dark and show detail, but it looks like we're completely underexposed down at the bottom here.
And I think this just comes down to a matter of opinion on the type of photography you want to do. The blacks are very close to being crushed, but it has a very natural light to it. If you were to HDR this, as they would say, and start pulling in more of the shadow, I think it would kill the mood a little bit. But maybe, I mean, you've seen more of this stuff than I have. Maybe you could bring the lower part up a little bit. Maybe
I do, yeah.
2/3 of a stop.
I
and
do
it'd
like
be
the
enough.
composition, I will say. But again, it's not the worst. I just think it needs work. I think we could straighten out the furniture. I think you can make it perfect. You can get all your leading lines. Like, it has the potential to be a 4-star image in my opinion. It just needs work. So that's why I gave it a 2. I think you spend an extra 10 minutes straightening the furniture, kind of trying to light it a little bit to create some mood. I'd
so
play
do
with
you
it
see
some
the-
more in post. I definitely fix the vertical white strip thing that's going on, the blown out highlight things. I have no idea what that is. I think the potential is there for this to be a
Well,
great
it's
image.
just tinted windows that have gaps in them.
But it's an easy fix.
Oh yeah, it's an easy. I definitely would have removed that and
Yeah.
fixed that. That doesn't seem.
So
like a
for
big
me,
deal.
it needs work. Again, like, it could be a 4-star image. I just think it definitely needs work to get it to that point. So for me, it's a 2.
And again, it comes down to the usage.
Okay.
If this was used for a video game or for some kind of art project, or I don't know what genre this would be.
Yep.
It's not fine art, but it's definitely not your classic architecture, interior, real estate photography. But it's cool. I mean, I could see this as like you're walking into a video game and like that's.
Yeah, it looks a little Half-Life-y,
Yeah, and I think it's cool. I dig it. So I
Half-Life 3 is coming out now. All
All
right.
right,
Ready?
let's move on. Man, I have a really hard time judging this kind of stuff.
I am trying to withhold my opinion of the architecture
I know.
while I
I
judge
know.
this.
The interior design is kind of what gets me, but. Okay, I know what I'm gonna rate this.
I'm torn. Okay, let's go for it. Ready?
3, 2, 1. 3 and
3,
a 2.
2. Okay.
We're not agreeing too much on these. Maybe that's because I don't do this at all.
No, well, I'm gonna make an educated guess here. I feel like this was shot for real estate, probably in the $150 to $400 price range. It's definitely not like gonna win any interior design awards. For me, I mean, some people I guess really like that, like conservative hedge fund manager type people would go for that, but it's just not.
This has to be more than a $100,000 house, right?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a very expensive house, but I don't think that it seems like, there wasn't any lighting. It looks like it's HDR. And for that price range and technique, I would say it's a solid image, but it could definitely use work to be a better image. But again, if this was like a cool modern thing, I try not to, but I might judge differently, but I just can't get along with this type of architecture.
Yeah, where the last image had a ton of mood and I loved it,
Yep.
this to me looks underexposed now. Now we're in a vibe where you have this really blue, almost blown out background. So it looks like it should be bright and airy. But then you're in this like castle, it's
Yeah.
dark, it's not inviting. Like you said, I think this probably is a real estate image, and those are things you don't want to overlook. You
Yeah.
don't want to make it a moody. I love moody interiors.
I could
but
definitely
I
bring
don't
this
want,
up a stop. Yeah.
Exactly, and so there's other things like I don't know if this is leading into a kitchen or a dining room, but where the chandelier is, that
Yeah.
area is just so much brighter than everything else. It's so busy. Like I don't know what I would do in this
I
situation.
just feel like that's the style. It's like the big plush couches and the ornate fireplaces and the crazy,
Could you shoot this tighter though, and somehow
Oh, of course.
salvage
Absolutely.
this room?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but again, it's budget, time constraints, lighting, skill set. Like how you could take hours and hours to make a killer picture.
I think that's really important to bring up is the budget and the time constraints.
It's not like a landscape where you can't change it really. It's like there's so many more elements going on here where you can really adjust it and make the picture your own.
But this photographer could have been hired by a real estate agent who says you need 20 images and
In an
the
hour.
client's going to leave for 2 hours. And this is, I mean, you don't have time to rearrange the whole room and make it look as perfect as possible.
In that case, I think it's a somewhat solid image. But if it was an architect or an interior designer who gave you the whole day to get 5 pictures, in that case, I'd rate it even more harsh. But if you had 5 minutes to do the house, I'd give it 5 stars. Like it's great. But it just comes down to the end usage. And using my guess of between $150 and $400 real estate shoot, I'm sticking with my rating.
Here's a question I have for you. Keeping an image like this in your portfolio, if you despise the styling of the image, but it conveys a genre and a wealth and all, it has this high-end feel to it.
Right.
Do you still keep that, or do you say
I don't, because I only want things in my portfolio that I would want to shoot again or that I want to shoot in the future, because I get a little grumpy when I have to shoot something.
You're not excited?
I mean, I'm an artist, but I definitely lose some work because of that. And I will say, do you have any shots of it? And if it's something that I really don't want to shoot and the money isn't there, I'm better off going after something else. But this isn't the worst thing I've ever seen. I saw, again, in my opinion, it's just not my tastes don't align with the big, over-the-top kind of, like gold and brown kind of themes.
Right.
It's just not my thing. Some people love it, as evidenced by these multi-million-dollar houses, but it's just not for me.
Sure.
I'm much more of a minimalistic kind of person. But again,
let's move on.
All right. Once again, I'm between 2 ratings here.
I think I know what I'm going to rate this.
Ready?
Yep. 2 and 3.
All right, 2 and 3. We'll go back and forth here. I think this is 2 just seems harsh on this to me. It seems like it's the beginnings of a good picture.
I can agree with that.
But the vertical lines aren't there. The composition could be improved a little bit. I think if you went higher and cut off some of the floor and cut off some of the ceiling,
you would raise the camera higher.
I would raise the camera higher. I would shift down. I really like that it's not super wide. I appreciate that obviously thought was put into this. I'm going to shoot it at 35 millimeters. How can I best get the most value out of that 35 millimeters, So I like the composition. I just think it could be tweaked a little bit. I think it's light and bright.
What do you think of the desaturated look in this? I instantly look at this and think that this is not the tones of the room.
Yeah.
It's almost, as a wedding photographer, I see images all the time that are black and white or very toned down, and my natural instinct is to think the light was so bad that they couldn't save the color, and therefore they desaturated it. And maybe that's a horrible generalization to say. But when I look at this, I see this bronze highlight, and I know there's color there.
HDR. It looks like it wasn't lit with flash, but I think, again, one umbrella, one light out the window, stage the island, send that light in, one exposure, bam, lift the shadows, done. And I think that's a killer shot. So I think, again, the makings of a good shot are there. You got to clean up the lighting and the color. I don't love the composition. I like the composition, and I see the effort that has been put into it. But again, there's lots of things to tweak.
Yeah, because ultimately this is a real estate shot.
Yeah. But I think, and I mean, I would even go as far as turning the lights off. Like imagine this picture raised up a little bit with one light on an umbrella out the window, and you had like a bunch of vegetables and bread on the table being cut up, and like the kitchen was in action. There's maybe a model in there.
It
could be a killer shot,
suffers from being a little too sterile for a kitchen.
Yeah.
It is a very modern kitchen, but like you said, just something to liven it up and make it look lived in a little bit, I think would help me want to buy this kitchen.
Exactly. All right, on to the next one.
Let's do it.
I'm ready. You ready?
I mean, yeah, I know. All right, we agree.
All right, we agree. Let's take it away.
I personally don't like the angle where they set the camera in this. I feel like shooting down the bed it adds all of this white, boring foreground.
Aircraft carrier right in front of us of a bed. And things, they're taking planes up on it.
And I understand why they did it. They did it because they wanted to show the window on the left. I don't know, after working with you, I don't know that you have to show the window on the left. I also don't know what is going on with the windows. The left is blown out, which I kind of like. And then the right window has this deep blue sky and looks like trees going on.
I think it's an awning, actually. Outside of it is an awning. It looks like a hotel or a
okay.
motel. And it's an awning that's hanging over.
I mean, and this comes with responsibility, I guess. I would almost clone out the awning, and from a certain camera's position, you wouldn't see the awning anyway. If you went up higher, the awning would be hidden. So I almost would clean that up just to not make that stand out as much. This room just comes across as looking very cheap, and I don't know that I would want a cheap room in my portfolio. I look at the TV and think,
but you could make this look very high-end very quickly.
How would you do that?
I would, tighten up the composition. You don't need to show an actual window to let people know there's a window in the room. You can send light in from light outside and get shadow and light coming across the bed. You know, again, stage it, champagne, rose petals, food, whatever. Some of it is a little bit cliche, but you can work with it. You can mess up the blankets. You can get a throw on there. Again, we don't need to see all this white. Like, it just looks like the bed is the entire room here.
Yeah.
And you can cheat a whole lot. Imagine if we came up, see this, like, if we came to this front left corner of the bed and backed up and shot at 35 millimeters, blasted some light into the window, put a cookie in there, some nice mottled light coming across the bed with, you know, a gel on it, a CTO
Explain
gel.
to them what a cookie is.
So if we put a cookie on there, a cookie is basically, it's a slang for cookaloris, which is a piece of metal or anything between the light and the subject that gives the light texture, whether it's a plant to create shadow, a piece of metal that goes on the light itself to create shadow, your hand to create some kind of mottled light, something to kind of break up the light, make it look like it's coming through trees or leaves and it's golden end of the day. There's champagne on the bed, there's food, room service, whatever it is. We show a sliver of window, we show some light, we get some books on there. Just dress it up, you know, fake it a little bit. To me, this just looks totally flashy and wide, and it could, like, so you could cheat a lot to make this look like a really sexy place.
Yeah.
You know?
It probably wouldn't be that bad, though, if you had this cheap job that's $100 and you have to shoot 30 pictures in a day.
But I mean,
you go in there and snap. This is like on-camera flash bouncing to the ceiling.
Yep.
It's better than just a snapshot. But
In that case, I'd still let more ambient in. I'd let the windows go completely, you know? It just looks very flashy to me. And some quick improvements here would be to tighten it up. Like, I don't need to see the gigantic pillows. Let some more ambient in. Use a little flash to fix the color cast. Not shoot so tight. Get a little higher. That would be my quick fix. But again, you can go crazy and light it and stage it and everything, so.
But this room, it's so dull that going overboard would kind of not. At some point, it doesn't make sense to
It's sales, man, you know?
I guess.
All right.
Let's go to the next one.
Next image. What is 4 again? Definite
4 is an
portfolio
excellent
material?
image.
Okay.
This actually looks like either something Lee has shot, or you might have an image in your portfolio, or it was once in your portfolio that looks similar to this. I mean, I know my rating on this.
I'm torn between 2. All right. I'm ready, but I'm excited. So here we go. Ready?
Okay. You're giving it
I
a 4.
give this a 4. I think this is one of the best images we've seen so far.
For this genre.
Yes.
We've had a couple images that kind of go in the fine art or some
Yeah.
genre we don't quite know what it is, but
But immediately I see thought was put into the composition. I see there was time and thought put into the staging, the colors, the processing. I think he did a great job with the processing. It's not exactly my style, but I think we definitely put effort in, and he did his best to contain everything, to use the colors to give a feel. There's, you know, I think there's a lot of thought put into this. I think the composition is great, like I said. I would, you know, for this photographer, I'd say it's a solid portfolio image.
yeah, I don't know what I can say to make this an excellent image. I think with a lot of these pictures, it just depends on the location. This is a killer, you know, office, waiting room, you know, meeting space. Something about the left-hand side, I know why they did it. Maybe you love that they show that the wall ends and there's something behind it. But Something about the left part of the frame having that little gap, and then the right-hand side, it borders being perfect. It shows that that's a reception desk, and I think it does that well. Maybe I don't really mind it. It's just this is the sort
It
of
kind of
image.
reminds me of Stanley Kubrick,
Yeah,
which I think is really cool. I love that look.
I just feel like this is the sort of image that is the best image in your portfolio for a while, and then
you outgrow it.
eventually you outgrow it.
Yeah.
And like for me personally, if I had this image, I'd
Yeah.
be thrilled. You know,
Yeah.
but when you get to the point where you're doing this for a few years, you're probably I don't know. It fits a very specific
I would love to
client,
see
too.
some models in here as well to kind of liven up this foreground, this dead area.
Maybe people blurry walking through or
Yeah, something like that. Or some kind of, handshake, exchange, whatever. Just something to kind of bring some humanity to it. But I also understand that it could be a very sterile kind of place, so.
The interesting thing about this image, though, is I can see this as being very useful in selling your work to your clients.
Yeah.
Because this image screams like we've blown up these pictures and we've installed them. And if you're a photographer who's very good at marketing, you could easily have this picture. And its primary use is to get your clients to then print your images and install them into their
But
workspace.
I think it's a pretty good image. So, I mean, I asked you what a 4 was. I'm torn between 3 and 4. But I threw out a 4 because I think for this photographer, it's a great portfolio piece.
I could swing that way. I just
Okay. I think we agree with different numbers. Ready?
we're still only 1 star off.
That's
know,
right.
it's-
Here we go.
Oh, this one's different from
Yeah.
anything else we've seen.
It's hard because it comes down to the space so much in this picture.
What do you mean?
The photo, the quality is very dependent on what we're actually photographing, and
Yeah.
where you can stand, and how good of a job you can realistically
This
do.
may
with
be the only shot. Well, it's not the only shot, but it may be the only shot from this upper perspective.
Right. Okay, I'm ready.
Gosh, I am between 2 numbers on this one.
I bet you're between a 2 and a 3.
I'm not going to tell you what I'm between. But I'm going to be a little cruel.
Ready?
All right. 3, 2, 1. All right.
2?
And I'll tell you exactly why I think it's 2. I love the tone of this. I love the vibe of this. I think if you threw a model in that chair, like this would be the perfect
Exactly.
set for a lot of commercial shoots. The tonality is amazing. Like this looks really great. The problem is the 3 rating is an image that's in your portfolio.
Or is solid, and you can't really pick holes in it.
Yeah, and I don't think this image is quite there. It definitely, I'm really distracted by the upper left. I can see some other place. I don't know how I feel about the blurry, out of focus flowers. I don't know if this is tilt shift or that's just what a wide aperture.
Yeah, I think it's just a wider aperture. It could be
It could still be f8.
Yeah.
It's just that's
and
so
50
close.
millimeters, and it's so close that. But I think it comes down to circumstance and how many angles can you really take of this place. It looks like it's very tight. If you put a tripod down on the edge of the pool here, it's going to fall in the water, So, but I mean, I think there's a lot that can be done to improve it. Like again, like you said, models in there, some sort of livening it up, like whether it's I don't know if this is a hotel or a residence or whatever, but I'm just going to guess that it's like some kind of private hotel pool. And you had, someone working there, like serving drinks. There was some kind of mood and atmosphere going on, people lounging. I think it could really take this to the
And
next
just
level.
because this isn't a 3 or above, that doesn't mean it doesn't still hold a purpose.
Right, absolutely.
If this was on the little quaint hotel website,
And I think a 2 can still be a solid image. It just needs work to take it to what it could be
and our rating scale is based kind of on photography.
alone.
We've brought up multiple times about inserting a model into the picture, and I know
Yeah.
a lot of people are going to be like, "What are you talking about?" Can you give a little insight on your use of people
It adds humanity, it adds scale, it adds interest. It gives a sense of place to an image and a sense of time and action, and it really can help bring something to life. So it helps people put them in that space much easier than something that's just empty and sterile and clean.
How often do you put to have a model on hand for a shoot like this?
Yeah,
is
I mean,
kind of a
often I don't even have a model per se. It's actually someone on the crew or one of my clients, and I say, I think it would be killer if we put someone in here. Let's see what we can do. And most of the time, people are like, they see it in my portfolio, and they're very down for the cause. And sometimes I use myself. I've done that before,
So when we say model, it doesn't
have to be like a
some,
girl in a bikini, like
right.
lounging, yeah.
It's just a human being in there that
a
gives
human
it.
being, yeah.
All right,
And someone even blurrily walking. Imagine someone like in midair diving into the pool. How cool would that be? I think that would be
Yeah.
great. But again, it all comes with time and pay scale, so
Yeah, you have to wait a long time for that water to get
still,
crystal clear.
you gotta
yeah.
get it the first try.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The scale's tough with this genre, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the widest genre. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like some of the other stuff we've done, it's
very more
the
cut.
locations and stuff may change, but this,
Yep.
it's like there's nuances in each genre within architecture and real estate. I mean, I'm gonna go a little more conservative. But
Okay, I'm ready. Ready?
Yep. 3.
3. All right, we agree. I think the lighting is beautiful in this picture. Going back a few pictures to that really dark space with the windows, like this is a great example of a lot of depth in the lighting. It's dark and bright, but you still see all the detail where you need to. And I love the staging. I just don't really like that plant on the left. I could see it on the underneath the left-hand side of the tub would be cool too, but it just kind of weirds me out there. But I like the composition. I like the lighting. The only thing that keeps me from giving it a 4 is that it feels a little crooked or something. Like the top is kind of angled off, and that plant is kind of weirding me out.
I think it's just a little off center. If you look at the beams on the top, the
I think
4 fall really nicely, but then the one on the left has all this extra space. If you could move the camera even just a foot.
But I think just some tiny tweaks here, and this would be a killer image. But I love the lived-in feel. I like the towel thrown over the edge.
Yeah, the towel's a really nice touch.
It really adds some humanity and
Well,
liveliness
we just
to
talked
it.
about adding models to your pictures. This is a great example of adding.
Not an actual model, but something that shows that it's lived in. People live here. It gets used. This is what it's for. It's not completely perfect and sterile. I think it's very, very much on the way to being a great image, but just needs a little tweak.
And they've also done a very good job of recognizing what is important in this room. And they picked the vertical image to really showcase that. You know, I don't know what this room would look like horizontally, but,
But I think the lighting is just sublime in this picture. So I'm stuck between 3 and 4, but I got to give it a 3 because there's some easy fixes that could take it to the next level.
Great.
Keep getting stuck.
Now this is one of those images where I feel like I've seen you on location shoot. We would call this a twilight
Yeah.
exterior painted photograph.
Yeah.
Definitely some composition and compositing has been done here.
I'm ready. You ready?
I could go between numbers, but I'll be a little kind here. 3, 2, 1. 3.
3. I have a tough time not giving it a 4 because the technique is nailed. They nailed the technique. I think it's a great twilight image, but the reason I give it a 3 not a 4 is because I just feel like there's some things that could be done to make it better. Like the sky feels very dull to me, and I don't love the amount of driveway that we're seeing.
The driveway to me is the biggest thing. Again, it's hard to say what's on the location of this property, but I would have loved more grass, or it looks like there could be a tree here on the left that you're just barely seeing. Something that gets rid of just the foreground being all driveway. Even if you step back and maybe zoomed in, something to compress it. And I know you like to shoot wider because it gives it depth.
It gives depth, yeah.
But yeah, I agree. Like this is a twilight image, but I feel like it's almost shot, or at least it's composited, with more of the frames being in the late twilight. Like you could almost have a brighter sky that's still dark and sunsetty, but it's not this blue, cold vibe.
But I think it's a pretty solid image. I think it's a great image. Depending on the level of photographer, I could see it go in the portfolio. It's going to be a great thumbnail image for real estate, Airbnb, whatever. I just think it needs some tweaking to really make it 4 or 5.
Yeah. Because you have this leading line, and the leading line is like the most boring part of a house.
Yeah.
It's the driveway. If that leading line could be anything else.
Maybe if we did the exact same composition but flipped, 100 feet to the left, shooting back so there was more grass and trees in the foreground rather than just driveway.
Yeah. And I guess that just goes to show, like, the first thing you do on any picture is nail the composition down.
And just walk around the entire house.
Because once you set this camera on a tripod and you start doing it, you're stuck with that shot, and you only have one sunset to get
Exactly.
Let's move on. This might be one of the longer critique the communities we've done. But it's good. I hope everyone's getting something out of this. This reminds me of a shot that we actually did in your tutorial for some reason. The outside, like...
I think I know exactly where this is.
Oh, you know
It looks
this.
like Lake Tahoe, but
Well, is that Big Sur? What bridge is that?
that is the Donner Pass Bridge
Donner
in
Pass
Lake
Bridge.
Tahoe.
Actually, you know what's really funny? I think that bridge may have been in our last critique the community with
Oh, really?
landscape. I mean, I could be wrong, but it looks very similar.
I'm good. You good?
Um, I'm gonna go nice on this one.
All right.
3, 2, 1. All right. I was thinking 2.
Tell me why you think it's a 3.
The reason I think it's a 3 is because again, this image just looks like it's for real estate, and it looks like one of those images you go in there and just knock it out, and that shouldn't justify the photography itself. You know, it kind of does. It's a catch-22. You have an hour to shoot this. You have 10 minutes to shoot this. If you spent all day, you could make this look unbelievable.
Yeah.
But what genre does this fit for? You know, it seems to be trying to sell a house. I like that even though there might be some slight blown out highlights, this is a very contrasty room, and they seem to have
I kind of like the light.
Oh, the light's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think a lot of photographers, especially portrait photographers that might try to get into this genre, we would stray away from having hard light and shadows coming in.
Yep.
But one thing I learned working with you is that can add so much mood, and you know that these windows to the right, as they're implied,
Yep.
has a great view. The sun's able to come through, and this is going to be a very warm and inviting room, which I like. I don't know what is going on up here. Is that a speaker?
I think there's speakers in the ceiling. Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it needs compositional help. I don't know what story this image is trying to tell me. What are we trying to say by showing just a fireplace? You know, like if we came to the left and saw some chair next to the fireplace with like a newspaper over it and a throw on the arm of the chair, like that would be a killer image with that light coming in. You know, and it tells me everything I need to know. Like you can relax by the fire and get lots of great afternoon light. But to me, there's nothing really going on in the foreground. I just think the composition is a little flat.
I can see that.
So with some compositional help, this could be a great picture. But I mean, like again, the beginnings of a solid image are there. With the light, I like the lighting, and I like what you're going for. But I just think it needs some staging and composition help.
Would you say composition is the one thing you see most photographers struggling with this genre, or?
Yeah, it's composition is very deceptively difficult in architectural photography, and it really I mean, like that's why I tell people, I can do 8 to 10 pictures in a full day, because for every picture, I'm really going to take my time. Because you can't shoot like a portrait and just blow out the background and send it to bokeh, right? The entire picture has to be carefully considered in every architectural photograph because there's none of it that's out of focus.
Yeah.
So you really got to take your time, consider every line, all the light, and really drill down and see what's going on in every photo before you even set the camera down. And then once you do set the camera down, find the right focal length, the right angle, the right way to shoot it.
Yeah.
So that it just. I've spent an hour composing one photograph before, and you just really got to look at all available options and check out what you can do.
Ooh. No, this is definitely unique.
Yep.
Who commissions this? Is this?
I mean, it's kind of cool. It's interesting.
It's interesting.
But I don't know what it's for.
Yeah.
And it's hard to critique it as a result.
This seems like it's for an electrician or for like.
Could be for like some kind of HVAC company or something.
Yeah.
And they,
which is a different genre altogether. You know?
Yeah. I'll judge it on that basis, I suppose.
Okay.
All right.
Ready?
I guess. Ready? All right.
3, 2, 1. Give it a 3.
I
give
think.
it a 2.
But I mean, I'm judging it. I'm pretending that like an HVAC company or an electrician said like, photograph my cable management or something, and in that case they did a good job.
Did they? Because I still look at this image
I mean,
and
like
think
how.
like I view the lights are blown out. Maybe that doesn't bother you. It just.
Oh, I thought that was skylight.
No, those are like.
Those are the lights. Okay.
Fluorescent lights. It just seems like you put this on a tripod and just took a snapshot, and then you got the exposure right.
Yeah.
You didn't do any post-processing really for the
Yeah.
upper lights, and then you got the color right. I'm sure the color in this place is horrible.
Yeah.
And you desaturated and you got it to look kind of white. But I feel like there could be a lot more done to. If you're going to go this route and have such an industrial image, as a
could be
photographer,
cooler.
you could make this look
Yeah.
really cool. And all that needs is a few little like maybe even
I
snooted
agree with you.
lights.
Maybe
popping
I
in.
got taken with the subject matter, like because it's so different. But I
Yeah.
agree with you after that. So.
The floor is kind of boring. I mean, it's a boring shot. What's interesting about it is.
But like the guy who commissioned this could be the happiest guy in the world.
Yeah.
You know, like who knows? We just don't know. It's just hard to judge on that
Yeah, I just feel like there's so many, so much potential and
Yeah.
direction you can go,
Yeah.
and this seems like the easiest possible answer
Yeah.
for the problem that you're faced with in
Right.
shooting this.
I agree with you. All right, next image. Ooh.
I think I know what I'm going to give this one.
Ready?
Yep. 3,
3 and 4. This reminds me of the black and white from the beginning. And I'd like to see this in black and white. I think it's pretty cool. I
You
think
want
it's
to see
solid.
this picture in black and white?
Yeah.
All that color.
Just to see it.
Just to see it.
Just because I think there's a great dynamic range here. Like, he's got bright white, dark shadows. And again, this guy could look really cool in black and white. I don't want to
So
change
this
it. I
appears
just
to have
want to
been
see what it
shot
would
with
look
some
like.
kind of neutral density filter, and the skies are streaking with a long
Yeah.
exposure. I think the tone everywhere on this is excellent. I mean,
Yeah.
everywhere you look, there's detail, there's something interesting, there's all this color and texture. The composition is actually pretty nice.
I think it's a pretty cool composition.
I
Like,
can't push it to a 5. This isn't like some memorable picture that will always be in your portfolio, but this is still pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. What I do like a lot about this is all the different types of light captured in this. So we have like daylight in the sky. There's obviously like fluorescent or incandescent interior light, and then the reflection over here. So I think it's pretty cool. It doesn't blow me away because I just don't know what it is. Like, it might be stronger as a detail shot in a body of work.
Yeah.
Like, if there were some wider shots showing me what the structure is, I might think of it differently. But on its
If
own,
an architect
Yeah.
had hired you to shoot this, and it's obviously showing off his design skills and the glass work and the craftsmanship, could this stand on its own for like an architect who wants the detail-oriented shot?
I think it would belong in a set, like in an architect's website. It would go in the portfolio. This could be like whatever concert hall, and there would be 10 pictures, and the first one might be like a wide shot to establish. It's like an establishing shot, so you know what you're looking at. I just don't know what I'm looking at, and for that reason, I have a hard time with it. So, in a series, I mean, this could be part of like the most amazing photo series ever, definite 5, but I just don't know what I'm looking at. So I think it's a solid image, but on its own, it needs more to help it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of beyond the scope of the quick critique thing, but
I don't know if this is a crop or something. There's just weird like Photoshop stuff happening on the bottom.
it's really cool though.
No, like right here, it's like,
Oh, way down there, there's like a weird crop line, yeah.
I don't know if they were trying to extend the image.
Huh.
Anyway, we won't talk. We'll cut that out.
All right. Ready?
Yeah. This looks like an image in your portfolio that I know vividly. The tree that's like branching
Yep.
both ways and it's lit.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yep. 3.
3. Solid image. I think the colors are a little strange to me. That's what.
What color? The
I
interior?
it just feels very cool. Like, the inside feels very warm and the outside feels very cool.
Sometimes that can work to its advantage. But
And there's
I
not
agree
too much color. Like, there's not a lot of pink or blue where it's just very kind of subdued and gray and orange. I just don't get a lot of mood from it.
Yeah, I just look at this and I say, again, small, this is going to work great for real estate. And it's one of those images that you spend a lot of time on and you nailed the technique.
And I think the technique is nailed, and I will admit that I'm kind of basing it on the merits of the architecture itself. It's not very spectacular, but the technique looks great. I just think I'd like to see more sky, but it looks like it really can't. But I think it's a solid image. I don't think it's going to blow anyone away, but I think it's more the fault of the architecture than the photo itself. All right,
so
last one.
this is the last image. All right. This is a crazy location.
I think it's a really cool location.
Yeah, it really is. What is this, like a self-portrait? Is this the owner?
Yeah,
Like
I
a
don't know.
obsessive fan of somebody?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there, but it's interesting. I mean, I think I know what I'm going to rate it.
Ready when you are.
All right.
All right.
3, 2, 1, 3.
3.
We end on a good note. We agree.
I think I like the composition. It's not too wide. It's not too tight. The room has a lot of character. I feel like you captured it pretty well. It's not comically overstuffed. And I enjoy seeing the chandelier with the light flares. I would definitely want to work on improving the lighting and clean it up. It's kind of a muddy feel to it. And just never Photoshop anything into the TV. I've stopped doing that completely. It's just like that's a TV.
Is that what that is?
Yeah,
It's a TV.
yeah, it's a TV down there. I just put a gradient in there. You can never tell what it is.
I thought it was a painting,
And
which looked weird being that low.
I like the composition. I like the feel. I like the mood. But I think the lighting needs to improve a lot.
I totally agree. I mean, this is another example where I think the blown out windows could really work because you're left with this weird,
Like
cool
bluish cyan,
blue.
weird,
Yeah, it's like you chose the shade.
And like imagine this with the bright white exterior and like clean white light coming in and great contrast, and you see the texture in the chairs. It's just like it obviously wasn't lit and it's just kind of muddy as a result. But you could really clean it up and sharpen it up and really add a lot of mood with additional lighting. But I think I do like the composition a lot. I would probably clone out this picture frame on the left-hand side. I'm not sure what that is.
The thing that drives me crazy is the chandelier going into the picture.
Yeah, it's a quick fix though, but it is kind of annoying.
Yeah, you can Photoshop that out. And again, Photoshopping those things out, it's not like you're changing the room.
Yeah.
It's just like the camera could have been moved 2 inches and that wouldn't have shown up. So I don't think it's like being disingenuous.
But I think this is a really, really cool space, and I think I do enjoy the composition. I think it tells me everything I need to know. But
and having a location like this in your portfolio is going to attract other clients.
Yeah, it's unique. You know, how many places do you shoot like this with this really cool exposed wood beam ceiling and these like very fancy chairs, and it's like very natural kind of feeling to it. It looks like it could be South Africa or something.
So did we have a single 5-star image in this critique? I don't believe we did.
We had one 4-star image.
Did we both agree on that?
No, you thought it was a 3. I thought it was a 4.
And I think I had a 4 that maybe.
Okay, so we had a couple 4 stars.
This is a very long critique. I didn't know it was going to be this long. But I think it's really helpful. You know, you explained a lot of things that you would do differently.
But I think it's a very subjective thing. But I do know, you know, and architecture is just a very finicky genre of photography. So, I mean, there's obviously things that could be improved constantly. And we could have been harsh, we could have been nice, but...
No, I mean, I think we're realistic about the rating, you know, where things fall and the portfolios that we've seen. I mean, obviously, both of us see a lot of images on a daily basis.
But having images like that, it really gives a lot to critique and to learn from. So I think it was pretty productive.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming out and giving a critique on 20 images. I know everyone finds this really helpful, and hopefully you guys can produce better images. If you want to learn more about Mike's incredible architecture technique, both with natural light and with your light painting that you do, you have the Art and Architecture.
Yep, the DVD where art meets architecture, and also the workshop coming up in the Bahamas in May of 2015. Looking forward to that.
Yeah,
it
and
should
you're
be a
going to be
great
shooting
time.
all kinds of like restaurants and penthouse
Hotels
suites.
And it should be beautiful. So.
He did it last year, so you can see some of the images he's taken there, and it's just very helpful if you're into this genre of photography or if you're looking to get into it. I know real estate and architecture is kind of this hidden gem within
within photography.
So it's exciting to see all of these pictures now appearing,
and it's very challenging.
I have to say a lot of it's coming because you're putting yourself out there and showing how to do these techniques. So very cool.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And hopefully you guys can sign up for the Fstoppers community. You can post your own images, and in a future episode, we will actually be able to take your images and do a similar critique in other genres as well. So thanks for watching, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this, or head over to fstoppers.com for all kinds of things photography related.